Although we have kept in touch through phone calls and various other means, since the United States and Israel launched their illegal war against Iran, a war that has been ongoing, our stance remains adhering to the principle of peaceful coexistence.
Well, I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I find him to be a tremendous guy, and we get along well, and you see how we do. We're doing a lot of business with China and making a lot of money. We're making a lot of money. It's different than it used to be. But I'll be talking about that'll be one subject. But he's been very nice about this. In all fairness, he gets like 60% of his oil from Hormuz, and I think he's been very respectful. We haven't been challenged by China. They don't challenge us, and he wouldn't do that. I don't think he'd do that because of me.
An anti-Trump campaign seems to be taking shape in Beijing as Iran and China come together just as the United States pauses its Project Freedom mission in the Strait of Hormuz, raising new questions about shifting global power dynamics. What was once seen as quiet back-channel diplomacy is now out in the open, with reports of a high-level Iran-China huddle emerging just days before the much-anticipated Trump-Xi meeting, adding a new layer of intrigue to the geopolitical landscape. At the same time, Iran is increasingly looking towards China for support, signaling urgency as it navigates mounting pressure ahead of the high-stakes summit between Washington and Beijing. In a clear message, Iran has publicly referred to China as a quote-unquote close friend, a statement that underscores deepening ties even as global tensions continue to escalate. And in a development that has caught attention, China's top diplomat Wang Yi has reportedly pushed Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, revealing the kind of pressure Beijing may now be exerting behind closed doors. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has arrived in Beijing for high-level talks with China's top diplomat Wang Yi, in a visit that comes at a deeply sensitive moment in the ongoing conflict. During the meeting, Iran and China discussed the war, trade ties, and the Strait of Hormuz as rising global tensions continue to ripple across energy markets and diplomatic channels. Araghchi described China as a quote-unquote close friend, signaling Tehran's intent to deepen cooperation as it seeks support amid repeated threats and pressure from the United States.
Although we have kept in touch through phone calls and various other means, since the United States and Israel launched their illegal war against Iran, a war that has been ongoing, our stance remains adhering to the principle of peaceful coexistence.
At the same time, Iran made it clear that it would fiercely defend its quote-unquote legitimate rights during ongoing and future negotiations with Washington, raising the stakes of any diplomatic breakthrough. Tehran has also reiterated its demands for a quote-unquote fair and comprehensive nuclear agreement, framing it as essential to bringing an end to the escalating conflict and restoring stability. China, for its part, has urgently called on both the United States and Iran to reopen the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible, highlighting concerns over global trade disruptions. Araghchi's visit marks his first trip to China since the war erupted on February 28th, and the timing has drawn significant international attention amid shifting alliances. Reports have also suggested that China may already be playing a behind-the-scenes role in efforts to broker peace, even as it maintains a cautious public stance. Beijing has largely stayed away from direct involvement in the war, attempting to avoid deeper entanglement while still engaging diplomatically with all sides. At the same time, China has resisted US sanctions pressure and continued its oil trade links with Iran, underscoring the strategic depth of their relationship. China remains Iran's top economic partner, even as the war places increasing strain on trade flows, energy supplies, and the broader sanctions landscape. The developments have raised a larger question, whether Araghchi's visit is also setting the stage for a much bigger diplomatic moment involving global powers. These talks come just days before a high-stakes visit by the US President Donald Trump to Beijing, adding another layer of significance to the timing. The US President is scheduled to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping on May 14th and 15th in what is expected to be a crucial summit with global implications.
I hope the Chinese tell him what he needs to be told, and that is that what you are doing in the Straits is causing you to be globally isolated. You're the bad guy in this. You guys should not be blowing up ships. You should not be putting mines. You should not be trying to hold hostage the global economy. I hope the Chinese bring, whether it's done privately, but I hope it's done directly, that's the message they deliver to them. As I outlined earlier today, China is an export-driven economy. Okay, I'm not here to speak on behalf of what's in the best interest of China, but it's obvious. China is an export-driven economy. That means they depend on other countries to buy from them. Well, you can't buy from them if you can't ship it there, and you can't buy from them if your economy is being destroyed by what Iran is doing. So it is in China's interest that Iran stop closing the Straits. It's harming China as well.
Meanwhile, the US President announced that he was halting Project Freedom just a day after its launch, a sudden decision that raised fresh questions about the mission's timing and objectives. The United States had launched Project Freedom to guide commercial and military ships through the Strait of Hormuz, aiming to counter the impact of an Iranian blockade in the critical waterway. However, on the very first day of the mission, Iran allegedly carried out strikes on the UAE's Fujairah port area and targeted multiple cargo ships, escalating tensions in the region almost immediately. The decision to pause the operation came shortly after Donald Trump issued a formal update to the US Congress outlining the developments and the administration's position. In that communication, Trump informed lawmakers that the operation remained within the limits set by the War Powers Act of 1973, seeking to underline its legal basis. Under this law, any presidential military action must be reported to Congress within a 60-day window, placing a clear framework around the use of force. Trump further argued that the ongoing ceasefire with Iran meant that this deadline had not been exceeded, suggesting compliance with the legal requirements. He also stated that the war had effectively quote-unquote terminated following the ceasefire that began on April 7th, framing the situation as a concluded conflict rather than an ongoing engagement. Thanks for watching Hindustan Times.